Where my mouse?
I passed by earlier today before I got here, and no one's on campus today.
Oh,
yeah, I'm sorry. So I'll bring it in next week.
All right, we're live.
They can bring it over.
Okay, cool.
All right?
Not a problem. Oh.
Hello, John.
Yes.
Hi, you're there. Great. Hi, John. This is Glenn.
I've been here. I've been here since 3:30, waiting on everyone to come.
Okay. This is Glenn, and we have Joe. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order at 4:05. Aaron, are you there?
No, I got myself out.
I had something I wanted you to do.
What do you want to do?
Overlook my junket bedroom. Did you see that remote?
Yeah, I cannot.
This one?
Because people who used to be here,
they
stole my remote. What? It goes with my cable boxes.
Okay.
And left an old one. Okay. They mailed that to me. It goes to it's for my TV in my bedroom.
Is it left?
To the left.
Okay.
Okay, so would you set that up?
Yeah,
thank
sure.
you.
Got you.
So, roll call. Lorraine, present. Bakir.
Here.
Randall. Here. Absher. Okay. Just a moment. We don't have an item. The board adoption agenda is fairly light. Just to know, probably the adoption agenda should be the first item after roll call.
Yes.
Is? That's on the minutes. This is the actual agenda. Looking at the actual agenda now for this meeting. This is the June 18 meeting. As first an open session, then there's a closed session. So I'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and move to item C, open session, comment on closed session agenda item. Is there any person wishing to speak on any item on the closed session agenda? I hear no desire to speak on closed session agenda items, so we're going to move to closed session. Is there a motion to move to closed session?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I second.
We're now in closed session.
Chris. Is it? Oh, Chris. How do we go to closed session? There was a phone number.
Oh, yeah, there was a phone number on the screen. Let me see this. There we go. 720. 835. 5396. Ring. And try pressing 37045.
It's supposed to come on.
Please enter your PIN to join this conference.
Oh,
This free conference call is provided by Uber Conference. You are the first participant on the call. Please hold while we wait for the others to join. To receive a link to this conference by text, press 3.
So I should go back over here for the screen?
Screens like this one.
Huh? Google Hangouts?
Yeah, that's the screen. But closed session, it'll be, it won't come back until you guys are done on the phone.
Well, I've been sitting here all day. I've been sitting in this waiting room. And I've been waiting on my friends. Yes, I'm waiting.
So you don't see anything during?
No.
Oh yeah, because other people are coming.
Yeah, because other people view it because it's a public session. Right?
Let me see the phone that's on. That's charging over there.
I hope it's not all day.
Oh.
Hey.
He's about the same.
Where they are, yes, I wonder where my friends have gone. Where'd they go? Tell me, where could they be while I'm waiting on this
What are they doing?
call? I don't know. Well, I'm holding on my phone, yes. Join now. Waiting for that.
I'll be right here, Jim.
Okay. Are people on? Hello?
Can you hear it? Hello?
Yeah, this is Joan. And who is this?
David, can you hear it?
Hi, David. No. I just had music. I'm on the telephone now.
Okay. Did you hear me, Joel?
Yes, because everything went off. I called.
there.
We call what's
Okay, up.
Chris, you know it's Jones.
Hear that one right now.
Okay, thanks.
There you are. John, is that you?
Can you hear us?
Hello?
Hello?
John, you're back.
I'm on now. I don't know what happened. It was like frozen or whatever,
That's fine.
but I hear Glenn now.
We
Okay.
now have the board adoption of agenda. John,
Okay.
I think you-
Mm-hmm. All right.
And John, did you second that we adopt the agenda?
I second.
Call the roll, please.
Okay, Noreen,
Yes.
Kier,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Babu.
The next item on the agenda is approval of previous meeting minutes. One of the meeting minutes is not complete. I believe that was the May 21 minute, so we are not going to approve that one yet. The May 30th agenda is complete. Is there a motion to adopt approve the minutes of May 30th?
We approved May 21 and the May 30th special meeting. That's the first thing we did.
Was it needed for that one?
Yeah.
But this is probably just a blank.
Probably.
Okay. Okay, so is there a motion to adopt the minutes for May 30th?
I so move.
I second.
Call the roll.
Okay, Noreen,
Yes.
Kier,
Yes.
Randall. Yes. Okay.
So if they were approved at the May 30th meeting, it should be here.
Yeah. Mars is out, so I can't really.
So I would ask you to check with Mar, and we'll just put it on the next meeting agenda.
Yeah,
So I don't think it was. The next item on the agenda is communications from the public on issues that are or are not on the agenda. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on issues that are or are not on the agenda? Hearing no comment, we will move to the next agenda item, which is Wallace White presenting on the May financials and the preliminary budget. Joan should be able to see this, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Joan, we're looking at the presentation that's in the board folder.
Yes.
Yep, I see Wallace standing there.
Great, okay.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Yep.
So this is a budget presentation, and it should be served as the basis for the budget approval to the action items. But I just realized the board can only approve the budget after the board approves the LCAP. So my understanding is we won't approve the LCAP until next week because there are two steps for approving LCAP. So today is just for the public hearing, and we won't approve LCAP. So Catherine, can you address that? So we won't approve the LCAP today.
Yeah, we have a separate agenda item on the LCAP.
So we have a separate agenda.
Yes.
So we will approve the LCAP today.
No, we're doing the public forum on that.
Okay, so next week we are approving. So,
Okay,
so
you
the
can
budget,
present now.
yeah, I'll present now, so we can approve the budget next week after the LCAP. So I'll start by giving you a basic overview of what next year's budget looks like. And then I'll go a little bit deeper to highlight some of the changes for next year as compared with this year. And at the end of the presentation, I'll basically show you some of the uncertainties or risk factors. So before I go to next year's budget, I'll just give you a quick update about where we stand this year financially. So we continue to do better than the budget. So instead of losing $350,000 as we originally budgeted for, we are expecting to have a small surplus, obviously in the range of $200,000 to $300,000 range. Okay, so that is good because that reduces burden for next year. So as usual, I'll start with the enrollment assumption for next year's budget. So we project to grow the enrollment by 161 students, and out of those 161, 100 will be for the two new schools. So we have a pretty conservative assumption for the two schools, and we expect to get at least 50 students each for each of the new schools. And for the existing schools, again, we have a conservative assumption that they will increase their enrollment by just 61 students in total. So just a note, I didn't make these numbers up just by myself. So it's based on our enrollment dashboard, which Jen and I created. So specifically, it takes into account last year's conversion rate and also this year's total applicants in the enrollment in our enrollment system, and also the average number of students we are getting on a daily basis. More specifically, it's assuming 50% conversion rate for new students and 90% conversion rate for returning students. And we're also assuming we are getting 5 to 6 students each in the next 2 months or so. So again, I didn't make these things up. So we have the data from last year to support our
5 to 6 students per day.
Per day, yes. 5 to 6.
We're actually averaging 7.1.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So this is a relatively, I would say, probably reasonable, realistic assumption. If we can beat those conversion rates, and if we can continue to get 5 to 6 students on a daily basis, we will end up with around 1,600 students in the first week of school.
How are the enrollments going for Clarion and Wings?
So right now for Clarion, we have around 60 students.
60?
60, but that's not registration verified. So that's the total applicants. About half of them, 30 of them, are being completed. Another 30 are in the just application stage. So we're still trying to convert as many as possible in the pipeline. And for the wings, we have a 22 so far. So this morning we just had an idea of converting some of the box students on the wait list to wings. So we have around 50 box students on the waiting list. So there's a possibility to transfer them to the wings program. So if that's the case, we can at least get 50 students also. So this slide basically shows our enrollment history. So historically, we have been growing at an average, I would say, 23 to 24% every year. So last year, we have a pretty big jump in our enrollment, 220 students. So this year, we'll continue to grow. This gives you a high-level overview of the financial statements for each school, as well as the consolidated income statement. So this basically projects a net income of $234,000 if we can get to have 1,600 students.
The Clarion and Wings revenue, I expect, includes the PCSGP.
Although we have a pretty, so first of all, we were notified we will be getting the PCSGP grant. However, it depends on, it's subject to the 50, I'll talk about it later, but we will only get it if we have at least 50 students enrolled at a point. That's one thing. I'm pretty confident we can get there. Another thing is there are a lot of constraints about how can we use the PCSGP grant. So one example is you cannot use PCSGP for salaries after the first day of school. So we probably need to buy a lot of Chromebooks, technologies, and furnitures, even if we don't need them for next year, which means we can buy probably more Chromebooks than we need for next year. So the real benefit of PCSGP grant, it's $475,000 grant, but probably the real benefit for next year is, I would say, probably $200,000 also for each school. So I just assume we will use PCSGP up to $200,000 for next year. Okay. So it's not taking into account the full $500,000. It's assuming we will realize $200,000.
And I noticed it's $475,000 for both schools. I thought it was lower for independent study.
Yes, it's $475 for each of them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this shows the how much net asset we'll have by the end of next year. So it helps if we can have a $200,000 net income for this year. We can grow our net asset by a little bit as we enter into next year. So instead of having just $800,000 as we initially budgeted for, we can actually increase our net asset by a little bit at the end of the next year. So, and the next year we will continue to grow our net asset. So as I have pointed before, we need to have at least $3 to $3.5 million net asset before we have to sell receivables. So still, we have ways to go. But it looks better, so we're recovering from the big hit we got from 2017. So a few highlights in terms of the changes we have for next year for both revenues and expenditures. So on the revenue side, by the end of next year, LCFF will be fully funded, which means we will still see a nice jump in our general funds next year. But after next year, after 2018 to 19, it will be basically minimal cost of living adjustments for 2% also. So next year, we are basically, the last year, we will see a decent jump in our general fund revenue. And as I said before, we got the PCSGP or the startup grant for each of our new schools for $475,000 each. And the total grant is actually $575,000. So whether we can get an additional 100 grant is dependent on next year's enrollment. We don't know what is a specific enrollment number we get, but I'm assuming if we have a high enrollment number and high free and reduced lunch population, it's possible we will get another $100,000 in the following year. So we will again get a one-time grant from the state for $170,000. So you may remember in the past 2-3 years, we kept getting this one-time grant from the state. So that's because the state financials looks pretty strong, but they do not want to give us ongoing funds. They don't want to have any long-term commitment. So this additional funds come in the form of a kind of one-time fund. So this is a kind of a wonderful, nice thing to have, but it's not guaranteed for the following years. And we're also applying for the charter school revolving loan for $250,000 each for each of the new schools. So in the past, it's kind of a pretty short thing, easy thing to get. But this year, we're getting tons of questions about our enrollment projections and about all the other assumptions we put in the budget. So, and also in the past, we got this $250,000 at once in one apportionment. But this year, I just got the notice from the Treasury Department of the state. We will only get it in small, small increments over time. So I'm guessing this because some of the schools who got this loan in the past might have challenges or difficulties paying back. So there are a lot more restrictions for this loan application. So at this point, we don't know for sure if we will get this loan or not. In terms of expenditures, so we're tightening up since 2 years ago when we got this big hit. So in terms of the biggest expenditures, salaries and benefits, we're increasing our average salary by just over 2%, as compared with 8-9% increase from 2013 to 2017. So that's quite a bit as compared with 2 years ago. And we expect to save between $150,000 and $200,000 by changing our insurance provider from Kaiser to Anthem Blue Cross. So I was at our Unified board meeting about 2 weeks ago. So they hired a consultant to help them cut costs. So the top recommendations from that consultant is to cut benefits costs. And they give an example which really shocked me. They said in 1 year, our Unified's general revenue increased by 2%, but their benefits costs increased by 50%. So 50% in 1 year. So it's just going out of control. So I'm really glad we did this in the spring. So instead of spending more on our benefits, we actually save some money. Actually, it's a very comparable health plan. So Anthem Blue Cross, if you put Anthem Blue Cross, on the same table with the Kaiser, it's pretty comparable. But for the same plan, it's almost 20% cheaper. So, and I think most of the employees welcome the changes. There are a couple of few, who are undergoing some treatment. They have some questions, but I think we address their questions very well.
How are do we know the teacher turnover for next year yet? Do we have a sense for that?
I think we do have data, so probably we can ask Melody to give you a presentation next time. So Bamboo HR, so we use a side note. So Bamboo HR is pretty strong in tracking the turnover.
Pardon?
We use the HR system called Bamboo HR. Bamboo HR.
Yes.
So it's a HR system. So it's pretty strong in terms of tracking turnover, staff turnover. So we do have that data.
Yes.
So we talked about financial streaming last year. So basically, it's looking at our historical spending trend in determining the future budget. So instead of increasing the budget every year for all the spending categories, we took a hard look at where did each school really spend in each category in the past few years, and come up with the average spending number for the future. Actually, it's I just showed the number to David. It's just magic. So we were able to save about $300,000 just by looking at our historical spending data and making school just to let them be aware of what we spend historically and set the tone for their future spending. So I'll show you a few graphs so you can say what it looks like in some of the spending categories. So I have one graph for each school. So this shows the spending level for 5 major categories that school has autonomy over. Basically, it's classroom materials, general materials, training and development, student transportation, and travel and conferences. So it shows 5 years data points, including next year's this year's projected data. So you can say the expenditures just went higher and higher until last year. And again, this is per pupil expenditure. So that's not the total expenditure, because that could be different due to different enrollment. But this is only looking at the per pupil expenditure. So as you can see, how dramatically it decreased over the past year, over this past year. So, for example, for this yellow line shows the general materials. This basically office materials. It's $214 in 2015, 2016, and this year it's less than 1/3 of what they spent 2 years ago.
Are teachers buying their own
No.
supplies?
Yeah, we told teachers many times they don't have to buy their own materials.
What is the what are the key drivers of the big drop? What are we not spending money on that we were? I'm just
I
curious.
think it's just a waste. So admittedly, we have a tighter control over things like the conferences and travels. So basically, in the past, they can just the principals they have a $2,000 spending credit, so they tend to use up that limit. So because I have $2,000 spending authority, so I just go to whatever conferences or trainings I like. Right now, they need to have a pre-approval from Jake if they want to go to any conferences. Another example is food. So when they have PDs in the past, they just go out and buy a bunch of food. So sometimes there are a lot of wastes because it's not just consumed. So sometimes you go to school, we have a lot of food not consumed by teachers. So right now we are getting a little bit tighter in terms of the food that they buy. So basically, they still have a lot of flexibilities. So it gives them each principal a budget. So basically, that budget is based on the average spending over the past 4 or 5 years. And let's say Clementi, they got $200 per student. If they have 300 students, that's $60,000. So they have a flexibility, autonomy in determining how do they allocate that $60,000. And we just look at the actual spending for the past year. So it's even lower, it's much lower than the budget we give to each school, which means the budget we give them probably is, I would say, more than enough.
Yes.
So it's not like they have challenges, meeting the basic needs of teachers. They have to overspend that $60,000. So for all the schools, they understand the budget we give them.
Okay.
And all the schools actually shows the very similar trends. Okay. So lastly, I would like to talk some of the uncertainties, because you may remember, so every year we presented to the board the preliminary budget in June, and every September we always have a revised budget. That's because how confident we are, there are always some uncertainties. So particularly about enrollment. So as usually, I tend to be conservative, but you never know. So especially when you co-locate with such district schools, so there are always surprises, unfortunately. So in any case, so we are assuming we will have 1,600 students. We can afford to have 50 fewer and still stay viable. So I think we're pretty confident we can get to 1,600 or even higher than that. But just letting you know, so this is probably the biggest driver of our financials. And the second uncertainty is a new rule in the PCSGP grant application. You need to get at least 50 students in order to be eligible, which means if you have only 49, sorry, you won't get a penny. So even for the money they already reimbursed to us, we have to pay back. So I think I'm pretty confident for Clarence to get 50. We're already there. For the wings, it looks right now we have 22, but as I said, we might transfer some of the waitlisted students to wings. So if we do that, there won't be any issue about that.
We only have to hit 50 sometime through,
At one
through
point.
the year.
At
Through
one
the
point.
year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And lastly, for the loan, it won't help income statement that much. Actually, it does by a little bit, because if we have the loan, we don't have to sell as much receivable as we need to have to charter school capital. It probably will have some impact on the net income, but the major issue is the cash flow. So if we can have a $500,000 loan, it reduces the cash flow burden a lot. But we won't know it probably until July or even August. So I'll keep you posted probably in the next one. That's basically it. Does anyone have any questions?
I hear no questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
The next item is a presentation from Catherine Hamilton on the LCAPs.
So this will be really brief. It's just updating you guys on our LCAP process and sharing with you next steps. So we went through a process this year to update not necessarily the content, but the organization of our LCAPs. So our LCAPs used to have 13 goals. And with each goal, you manage it by data sources, measuring outcomes, putting allocated expenditures with it. And as we went through a process this year to come up with what we call the Ingenium, or 10 pieces of our framework for effective learning and school operations, we determined we could reallocate or group together our 13 goals into 6 goals. And we would be reporting on the same outcomes, the same metrics, the same expenditures, but it would be a little more of a streamlined document. So as we went through this process this year, we came up with a draft of the LCAP for each school. We went through we had the principals review it based on their site aims and how they wanted to allocate for their student groups, their needs for achievement and improvement. And then once the principals went over it, we did stakeholder feedback groups with the staff. And stakeholder feedback groups with our parents. We took all of that feedback, updated the drafts of the LCAPs, and those have been put on our school websites for the public review period. So those were put up on Friday about noon, so that's the 72-hour period. And so today is our open forum if there's any public comment on them or feedback on them. And then you guys have a meeting next week to do the final. I first wanted to open it for our board if there are questions about our process or content or any updates to our LCAPs this year. On to those.
We are going to have a follow-up meeting next week. Do we know the day yet?
No, we'll have to decide this meeting. We'll have to do it electronic.
Telephone meeting.
Yeah.
Is Erin on the line? You know, so we don't know if she was calling in or not. It's important, actually. There's an item that I can't vote on.
Yes.
No, it's the ratification.
Oh, yeah.
We might schedule that for next week.
Hello?
Yes.
This is Joan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Did we receive an email about the meeting next week?
Not yet. We need to decide that date.
Why don't we decide it right now?
Okay, I just wondered if I missed it.
Let's plan on it today.
We do either Monday or Tuesday. A lot of people leaving by Wednesday.
May I suggest Tuesday, and I suggest it be at 5:30, telephone meeting. My suspicion is that Erin is more likely to make it if it's at that time. It's Tuesday, next Tuesday, 5 o'clock, okay? 5:30, that's right.
5:30?
5:30?
Great.
Is that the 26th?
Yes, does that work for you?
Yes.
Awesome.
Are there any, you mentioned comments from the public. We had a communication item earlier on items that are on the agenda.
Great.
But let me ask, are there any members of the public who would like to comment on the LCAPs now? Are there any questions about the LCAP now from board members? I hear no questions. Thank you very much. We'll go to the next agenda item, which is Maria Donato on the English Language Development Program and outcomes.
So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Maria Donato, and I am the ELD coordinator, TOSA, here at Ingenium, while smiling at me. So today I'm just going to give you a quick ELD program update, some of the work that I've done with the instructional team, with principals at all of our campuses. So the purpose of this presentation will be for you to have a better understanding a little bit about the history of the role, some of the methods we took for improving ELD on our campuses, the impact of the role so far, and some next steps. So to talk about a little bit of the history, where we've been in the past, actually in the presence of our awesome old ELD coordinator, Ms. Lopez, who worked as ELD coordinator in 2016-2017 school year. And she worked really hard on getting our systems on track as far as compliance goes, and just completed major work at each of our campuses to get a lot of our record keeping straight. And where we are now is now with me in this new role of ELD. Well, this year I served as ELD coach. I'm transitioning into more of a coordinator role next year. But primarily I focused on instruction, and the why and the purpose behind the shift in the role would be that our data indicated that we needed to take a little bit of a closer look at our ELD instruction, and as well as responding to the needs and support teachers were requesting from previous years. So this year, what we implemented to improve ELD instruction came in the form of something called guided language acquisition design strategies. So last summer, I went to a training and became GLAD certified, and essentially they give you a toolbox of 80 plus strategies focusing on reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And what I've done is created resources for teachers to use and presented professional development sessions at all of our sites. I've done demonstration lessons and continue to develop teacher capacity through coaching with a GLAD cohort that actually took place at ICS with a group of 4 teachers. So what you see here on the right is something I called, kind of coined the GLAD guide. So it comes as a part of this bigger resource matrix where teachers can go and click on different links and they get linked to all the strategies with whatever they need to do, what the students need to do, the purpose behind the strategy, and some examples of it too. So here are some pictures of GLAD in our own classroom. Some of them, actually, just a couple of them are examples from my demonstration lessons, but the others are products of the cohort that I worked with at ICS. I have many more examples of these strategies too at Clemente, ICMS, and some at Vox as well. So that's a little snapshot of what the GLAD strategies look like. Something else that was an area of focus for me was progress monitoring throughout the year. So we developed, and by we I'm talking about Ms. Hamilton and principals, as well as everybody who joins in our principals meeting, to create this new form that is essentially tracking students' progress towards reclassification very clearly with all of our criteria all in one place. So like compared to last year and other years where we had multiple areas where we would keep our data, where we could track our ELs, now it's all streamlined into one place where we use it quarterly with teachers at each site to analyze EL progress and their growth using internal measures and, of course, the external measures from the state. And some of the varying support groups that I provided support for look like this. So we have support group A, where those teachers just received PD. That might have been at all Ingenium, or that would be at their sites or through choice sessions. Support group B received PD and also observed demo lessons. And support group C received PD, demo lessons, and some sort of coaching from me. Here's a little snapshot of what those support groups look like at each of our campuses. So you'll notice that support group D was higher in percentage at ICS and Clemente, so I worked a little bit more closely with teachers there. And on the right, you can kind of see some of the teacher impact that happened as a result. So what we did, myself, Ms. Hamilton, principals at the sites, walked through to collect some baseline data about where we were at with implementation of GLAD strategies, as well as designated ELD. So here, as far as GLAD strategies go, you'll see that all of our schools showed some initial implementation of the GLAD strategies so far. And the ones that showed evidence at higher levels had more teachers in support group D than the others. And here's some of the student impact, and for this I was using iReady as the metric that we were looking at. So here you could see the orange line is, here we'll see kindergarten at Clemente, which is a part of support group D that receives some coaching, demo lessons, as well as PD. So you'll see in kindergarten at Clemente, the ELs, which are the orange line, are outperforming the black line, which is ELs Ingenium Y. So that line is depicting how far they are from being on grade level. So you'll notice that in our lower grades here at Clemente, which have a higher amount of our ELs, are showing.
So this is over time?
Yes.
This is graphed against time.
Yes.
So what this is telling us on the first one is that at the start of the year, they were at CCS, kindergartners, were 53 points beneath grade level.
Right.
And they ended up at 20 points beneath grade level.
Right.
On the ELA score, so they're making progress. Ingenium wide, it got worse.
That's what that looks like. So the teachers that were supported and were that the students that had more highly trained teachers with the EL strategies,
they're making more progress is what this is showing. Okay. And what is the difference?
Just two different classrooms.
Oh, two different classrooms. Okay.
I noticed there's a lot of variation here, so I'm excited to continue to study it. But you'll also see that in first grade at Clemente, where we do have teachers who are implementing GLAD strategies, they're also outperforming the ELs and Ingenium Y.
Okay, so this is Joan. Do we have a block time, systematic ELD instruction every day, or how do we go about it at our schools?
That's a really good question. So we are aiming towards that where 100% of our teachers have the designated ELD block in their classrooms. Our baseline data right now is showing that although teachers are planning for it, it's in pockets. So my answer is no, not yet, but that is an area for improvement that we're continuing to work towards having 100% of our teachers do quality designated ELD. And some of the measures we've taken this year are really thinking about which teachers are the ones that are struggling to implement designated ELD blocks, like the ones that you've asked about, and identifying what's the area of support they primarily need. So right now it's looked like planning for ELD instruction is the area of need. So I've worked with teachers one-on-one to support them in creating more solid language objectives for their instruction. So yes, we are aiming towards having designated ELD blocks that are really strong at all of our campuses. Right now, we are still working on having that full implementation. And here, this is ICS. So although they're not outperforming the ELs and Ingenium Y, these are some teachers that participated in the cohort at ICS that I ran throughout the year, and they are closing the gap, although it is, like Catherine and I were looking at this and considering that variation here. but continue to study it throughout the year. Next steps look like training teacher leaders to be GLAD certified. So right now, I'm I'm the only one. Well, actually, Dr. Perry came with some GLAD training, but she obviously has, an assistant principal role. So outside of the classroom, I'm the only one so far that has been officially GLAD trained. However, we have 2 teachers who are becoming GLAD certified now. I've worked with the principals to allocate some of their funds to send their teachers out to the GLAD training to become leaders of that EL way at their sites. They'll work with me throughout the year to identify how to get teachers into their classrooms, doing demonstrations as well, so that as we grow, I can continue to find how they can continue to grow. So I'm looking forward to finding and being creative about getting more teachers trained, because it is an allocation of funds that we need to make room for to see this grow even more. Lab classroom with a focus on GLAD strategy implementation and ELD instruction will come from our teacher leader, Sophie Jacks, who has really taken off with the strategies and has already embedded them into PLEs. Right now, I'm working with the PLE summer team. I was actually just there today, where we're going to ensure that language supports are embedded in our PLEs as a part of the revision process. And something I want to note is that as I was reflecting about the outcomes, student outcomes of and impact of my work, I want to continue to improve on our internal metrics that we use to identify growth within our EL population. So this student group could be showing more growth in their Fountas and Pinnell scores. And as we continue to figure out how we can make those into numerical factors and get them on dashboards, it'll be easier to see their growth. But when I'm actually looking at that data, it's a little bit harder to disaggregate. But I think that internally, the Fountas and Pinnell will show more growth in our ELs as opposed to our other iReady internal assessment. And lastly, I'm going to continue to determine professional development needs and allocation of my support. In fact, we're having a TOSA meeting with some leaders at the home office tomorrow to really take a look at data and dig into what my support will look like going into next year, entirely based on data and the support our kids need. Any questions?
I recall that we had a reclassification pickup, I think, last year.
Oh, really? At which, at ICMS?
ICMS.
But that was just ICMS. How are we doing on reclassifications this year? That's something that that LA Unified was.
So something that I'm really excited about is that we are doing like an internal reclassification monitoring ourselves. Of course, criteria for reclassification has to do with our language proficiency assessments, and this year it's the LPAC, but we haven't gotten all of our scores back because we just finished up the testing just now in June. Yeah. So, but instead of just waiting and hinging on that, what we've done is analyze the data as of now. And so teachers are finishing up this end of year closeout process where they're saying, yes, the student is ready to reclassify, and providing evidence through that measure that I was talking about, the tracking form that we've implemented. And if it's a no, we're also really digging into what the student's language needs are. Instead of saying it's a no, okay, let's move on to next year. Now we're really going to have this documented recommendation from the teacher. So those are not all done yet, but Clemente is actually done, and they have, I think it's a 20% reclassification rate for next year, which is a prior year.
Okay, yeah, this is Joan. Now, my first question is, are all of our teachers certified? I mean, do they all have the CLAD credential?
I don't know the answer to that. So, Catherine?
So there are kind of 3 types of credentials most of our teachers have. They either have a preliminary credential that includes an EL authorization. They have a preliminary credential that does not include an EL authorization, and those teachers are teachers who come from us being certified in another state. or they have a clear credential. And so we have a good mix of preliminary credentials with an EL authorization and clear credentials, which include EL. Where we've had some challenges, and this is also reported on LCAP and in our oversight visits, is the number of teachers we get who transfer from other states who then have a window when they need to get EL authorization. So teacher training in California includes that in the teacher training and credentialing. So right now, I believe we have 3 teachers in Ingenium wide who don't have EL authorization, and what we do is we'll allocate students out of their classroom who are ELs so that all of our ELs receive instruction from a highly qualified teacher. And then they're also working on even taking an assessment, like a state test to get the certification.
Okay, it might be something to consider if you look at on each grade level, or maybe primary and upper grades, because that's the way the tests are structured, the reclassification, and group students according to their ELL level, and have a block and team, because I used to teach the certification classes for the class. And it's one thing that all the research shows is that for students to reclassify, especially when within a certain period, they need to have systematic, consistent instruction by intention by qualified teachers. And I think that would help us a lot, because LA Unified will call us on it, especially with the elementary schools, especially. And that the tracking of the children. So I have worked at schools where they would do a team and say maybe you have there's a certain amount of time, and I think it's changed now. It's between 30 minutes and an hour. And you have that block where those students can be pulled. Maybe put your 1s and 2s together, your 3s and 4s, or 3 and your 5s and your EOs. But I would really like to see early next year what type of systematic structure we have for ELD instruction and reclassification.
Yeah, those are things that I think we're seeing, like I said, in pockets. But I agree with you. More systematic blocks at the campuses could lead to better instruction for our EL.
Joan, did I hear you say you'd like to see something next year?
Yeah, early next year, if we can have a plan for it in place of maybe October or November, so that we're moving to a system. I'm not asking, there are a lot of different programs that can be used. When you use an ELD program, it gives a lot of structure. But we're not about, in our philosophy, specific program structures. But our students, everything will do better the better we accommodate our ELLs.
Right. That's something that we do have. We have structures for designated ELD, and we have structures for reclassification and monitoring progress of ELs. But I think that the direction that we're going in right now is to really train our teachers in planning for that structured time, and like I presented, in becoming GLAD educators as well.
I'd like
to. That looks like where you are headed. That's the main reason I brought it up. And so, because that's the easiest thing to skip during the day. Trust me, I watch tons of teachers say, well, we won't do ELD today. Okay, we'll do it tomorrow. Then tomorrow becomes next week. And the children suffer because of that. So I would like to see that early, the early part of the school year, the structure that we have.
What I'm hearing you say is you'd like to understand what the structure is for ELD at the beginning of next year. I would like to suggest that that we ask Jake to follow up with Joan on that.
Hey, Catherine.
Catherine? Oh, that'd be fine.
Yeah, I can review our EL master plan.
Thank you.
Joan, Catherine put together the ELD master plan. I'm going to ask her to follow up with you on this.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions
Thank you.
on Maria's presentation? That was very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next item on the agenda is approval of the consent items. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent items?
I so move.
I second.
Can we call the roll?
Noreen,
Yes.
Bakir,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
The
approved.
consent items are approved. The next item scheduled for action, I don't think either of them actually are going to be addressed at this meeting. The budget we just heard needs to be approved after the LCAP. So we will move that to the next meeting. My ratification of my severance agreement, this is an agreement that was agreed to a couple of years ago now, but it was never technically ratified by the board. But I should not vote on it, and we do not have a quorum without me.
Yeah, that was confusing to me because I said, this is old. I read this a long time ago, so now I understand.
Yeah, we don't have it in the minutes that it was actually ratified, so it's just to ratify it. But I should not be part of that vote. So we will delay that until the next meeting.
Well, we have 4 people on our board, right, Glenn?
Yes.
Well, I think a quorum would be 2 people.
No, a quorum is 3.
Okay.
Requires 3. So Aaron, and I do suggest that Mar follow up with Aaron.
Yeah, I've already
and find
sent
out if she can make it on Tuesday. If she can't make it on Tuesday, we should find a date when she can make it.
Yep.
The next item on the agenda is board meeting evaluation. Are there any comments on board meeting evaluation?
I thought the presentations today were well, for lack of a better word, well put together, very professional, and had a lot of depth. I saw a lot of growth in the ELD. Wallace's analysis and the way they are approaching saving money and whatever, I thought was excellent. I thought we went through in really great time. I think it was a very good meeting.
I see Joe nodding his head. I'm nodding my head. One suggestion I have, and this is a little bit confusing, it's not clear when we have closed session items whether we can post in advance things like the letter from the parent. I think we probably should have, but I'm not sure we can't.
No, you can't post the letter.
We can't actually post
You
that.
can only post.
We can't even send it to the board members?
No, you can only. Yeah, board members can have it, but you can only post like.
Yeah, we wouldn't post it, but can we send it to all the board members? That would be.
Yeah. It should have been in the packet.
Okay. Okay, I wasn't sure in the tech. I thought it might not have been in the packet because we technically couldn't, but we could. It just should have happened. Okay, that's all right.
Yeah, we've been struggling because Mar's been out a lot. Son's been sick, and so not always sure what she's done, what she hasn't done.
Yes.
So get it fixed.
Okay. Any other comments on the board meeting? Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? Oh, actually, one thing I wanted to ask is, are there any agenda items that board members would like to see that we hit at the next meeting or a future meeting?
I still want to see safety.
Safety. So we talked about doing that in early next year?
Well, we've already, we have to adopt the LA Unified Safety Plans automatically.
That's fine. I've been thinking about it, and I said because we are on LAUSD campuses,
right?
That's a real good thing, but I don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know what their safety plan is. Is it on their website? I can go over to the website.
Yes, it should be on their website, but
Okay. Okay.
yeah, we've already adopted that.
That was the answer I needed.
Any other comments? Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move.
I second.
Please call the roll.
At
5:16.
okay, Noreen,
Yes,
Bakir,
Yes.
Randall.
Yes.
the meeting is adjourned.
All right. Thank you, everybody.